Okay, Politics Gene has returned. I'm going to make a very short video about Prince Philip and my thoughts on the whole situation. So, he's dead. Dress rehearsal for the Queen's death. Um, I mean, although we're like officially in a period of mourning or something, um, and obviously because it's not as bad because it's not the Queen, it's Prince Philip. Um, but fortunately, it seems like we are able to kind of continue with a bit of normal life because one of the things that I really didn't want to happen when a major royal died was for everything to just be stopped. I mean, the media are kind of going on and on about it as you would expect. I'm not disappointed that that's happening because I'm not surprised. Um, but um, it's nice to see that we can have some degree of normality at the same time because I don't want my life being overshadowed by Prince fucking Philip. Also, another interesting thing that's come out of his death is that there's a guy a few doors down from me that's just put up a giant Union Jack flag, which is very tacky and not something that we want to see kind of in the back garden flapping around because it just doesn't look very nice. However, now that Prince Philip's died, it's at half mast. So, anyways, so first of all, controversial. There are some things that Prince Philip should be honoured for that a lot of the social media circles haven't been focusing on. I feel like a lot of mainstream social media outlets have been focusing on the wrong things about, we should be sad about his passing just because he's a royal, or we should pay respects just because he's a royal, and I don't think that's true. He was a very strong environmentalist. It sounds hard to believe, but he raised awareness of climate change back in the 50s and 60s when it wasn't particularly fashionable to do so. So that's one good point against him. And he also co founded the WWF, which obviously protects endangered animals to a certain degree around the world, which is another kind of admirable thing, I think I would say. And there are probably a few other charities that can be said for him as well. So, as with every human being that's ever existed ever, there are good points and bad points about this man. That should come as no surprise to anyone. However, as we all know, I don't need to explain that he was had some pretty outdated views. He was racist and casually racist at that. He was also casually misogynistic and probably a few other ists as well. I mean, I haven't found the list. I haven't read. There's several kind of full lists of all the dodgy things that he said. I haven't read them all, but there's probably going to be something in there to offend everyone, which is not a good look. So yeah, he wasn't that. I mean, like, as I said, there were some things that he should be praised for, but he wasn't that great of a guy. And as an addition to this point, um, now because a royal has died, one would expect the bad things about someone of that kind of level of importance, of significance. When someone like that dies, you would expect those bad things to be overlooked by the mainstream media, who, by design, will have to pay tribute to them. For example, when a prime minister dies, although maybe that's not the best example because the most recent one we have of that is Margaret Thatcher. But to an extent, they'll try to kind of be impartial about it. They won't say all of the terrible stuff that they did. They will just say that they are divisive. And in the case of Prince Philip, it will be that he was outspoken or had a wicked sense of humour or something like that. But what I find very bizarre and a little disturbing is the fact that several of his awful comments have been paraded about by the mainstream media, trying to put a positive spin on it, as part of the positive tributes. There was an article in the Telegraph, the fucking Telegraph, which tries its best to be woke because it's on Snapchat now. The Telegraph is on Snapchat, a right-wing outlet is on Snapchat, so they try their best to put a few woke stories. Oh, look at us, we're woke, we're down with the kids, we know about social justice. But then they had a little article that said 45 of Prince Philip's funniest gaffes and hilarious moments, and it's basically just a list of all the fucking horrible shit that he said. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, I knew there would be some low blows from the Telegraph, but the fact that they printed all of that awful shit that he said and attempted to sell that as look at Prince Philip. What the fuck? Like, oh my god. So, as usual, the way that the media have been covering this has been pretty awful. But that's not to be expected. I didn't expect some of that stuff, but in general, I expected it to be pretty awful. And another thing that I wanted to say in that regard is that the amount of shit that they are pumping out is, I mean, I knew they'd have a lot of stuff. Like, they can't just stop talking about him now, surely, can they? I mean, if it was down to me, they would, but the shit that they're pumping out now is like, it's fucking, what if Prince Philip had never met the Queen? That was one that I saw on the Telegraph today. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. What are they going to do? Oh, what was Prince Philip's favourite flavour of crisp? And it'll be a big long article. What was fucking all this types of shit? And I just don't... It's just a load of hot air. And it's annoying. But it's to be expected, I suppose. And lastly, the thing that kind of really fucking irritated me is that, in fact, I have my computer here. Now, unfortunately, I cannot flip the camera around, so this will probably be backwards. But I don't know if you can see that. The front page of BBC News is Prince Andrew. Now, Prince Andrew was, I believe, withdrawn from royal duties. He's not allowed to do royal duties or something anymore because of the whole thing with Epstein, and he was, you know, fairly decently kind of interrogated by the media. Not as much as we would have liked, and obviously there's still so many quite pressing and disturbing questions that need to be answered that aren't being answered. However, he is now on the front page, and it's almost as if it's just been completely forgotten about. I was quite surprised to see Prince Andrew being featured in tribute videos to Prince Philip, but not totally surprised because he is his son. But he's on the front page of BBC News, this man, who could be a paedophile, probably, I don't know if they would sue somebody with 20-odd subscribers for libel, but probably a paedophile. All sorts of dodgy dealings, if not, as with other members of the royal family, but the point is that all this stuff about Prince Andrew is in the public domain, and the media, you know, went to task on him, rightly so, for it. And now he's on the front page, but not in a negative way. He's leading the tributes, and the media are parading him and giving him a platform to do this. There's no real accountability, and it just goes to show what a bunch of toxic snakes and all sorts of other horrible animals that the mainstream media are. I've never trusted them. They've never been trustworthy. It's always been their objective to sell stories, to get people to give them attention so that they get more money. particularly so since Rupert Murdoch, you know, kind of stepped to the forefront of it. But, you know, this has always been a problem, but it just kind of, this doesn't mean that we should leave it unchecked like this. It is just absolutely ridiculous. So that's my thoughts on the whole thing. I didn't want to make this a proper long video. It's about 10 minutes long, which is, I think, not as long as some videos that I've made. But I wanted to make this kind of off the cuff, because it wouldn't fit in an Instagram story otherwise. But yeah, so let me know what you think of the few little ramblings that I've said, and thank you very much for watching.